Well, hello, guys. Today we're going to look at the most common questions and objections related to abortion. So let's start with the first and most common objection that I hear, which is, what if a woman is raped? Well, to answer that question, let's hear from rape victim Edo Carrick. Watch this.
May 17th, 2004, I was at a party with some friends of mine that I thought were friends, and unfortunately I ended up in a situation where I was drugged by a stranger. I was given a horse tranquilizer and a beer, and within minutes I just remember my head hitting the floor, and I woke up on a folding couch in the living room with my clothes off. And the person who was so nice to me the night before was still laying there. And I felt like I was hit by a truck. I was bleeding and I was just not, I knew what had happened, but it hadn't really sunk in, and I just knew I had to get out of there. But I looked at the test, and within like 5 seconds it was already showing positive. And I couldn't breathe. I was just in a panic and freaking out, because I'm thinking, okay, this guy did this to me and now I am carrying his child. And it was a total freak out moment, because I could have done what would be considered okay by society and by people around me, and I could have had an abortion and not had to think about it again. And I couldn't do it though, because the thing is, something horrible and traumatic was done to me, but going and having an abortion is just something else that was horrible and traumatic, and I would have more regrets for the rest of my life for killing a child. Like, it's not the baby's fault that this happened. It's not the baby's choice that this man did this to me, and I couldn't do it. So I remember calling my dad at work, and he just kept saying, "Are you okay?" And I kept saying, "No, I'm not." So he came home, and I just told him everything. I just started crying, and he was crying, and he said, "I just wish you could have told me, like, so I could have been there for you and I could have helped you." And I just told him I didn't want to disappoint you. But he just said, you know, we're going to support you. We're going to be there for you with whatever you want to do, as far as if you're going to keep the baby, if you want to give this child up for adoption, you know, 100% we're there. I remember the first time that it really hit me that this was going to be hard is we were at a movie. I'm diabetic. I have been since I was 2, and I passed out, and my dad just knew he had to get me to the hospital. He did, and he told the doctors, you know, she's pregnant, she's diabetic, she passed out, so they wanted to make sure everything was okay. So they came in and they did an exam, and then they said, well, should we call the baby's father? He should probably be here, he'll want to know. And I said, oh, there's no father. And they looked at me like I had 3 heads, like, okay, honey, do we need to have a talk right now? And when I said that, I told them, well, I was drugged and I was raped, and so I don't know where the father is, and he really has no business being here. And then I didn't know that by saying that in the hospital, they were required by law to call the police. So that's when the police kind of stepped in to the situation, and I remember there was a male and female officer, and they came in and had me tell the whole story of what happened to them. And then the male officer looked at my dad and said, okay, we're going to have you step outside. We need to have them have their alone time. And I just remember feeling like I wasn't the victim. I remember feeling like the criminal at that point, because the woman officer turned and looked at me and she said, okay, so now are you going to tell me what really happened? A lot of life experience, good and bad, but I'm not going to take away his shot at living to save me. And my parents were sitting there like, here I am, their baby, making a decision about my baby. And so the doctors came in with paperwork, and I had to sign off on everything that said they could keep me on life support if they needed to, so that he would be okay. And it was just a short time later that I went into congestive heart failure, and the fluid was just surrounding my heart. But the crazy thing for me is they just kept saying, you know, we're going to give you medicine for pain, and I don't remember feeling pain. I don't remember feeling scared for me. You know, I was content. I had my family there. I had our family priest came and kind of prayed with us, and he knew that it wasn't good, and he knew that whatever reason I was fighting them on not having the baby at that time, and they just prayed. And the congestive heart failure was just kind of taking its toll on everything. And they were just saying, you know, it's not too late. If you want to do this, we can still take the baby. And I just kept saying, no, I'm fine. Like, it's okay. And then I told my parents, like, if this is happening, just take care of him, you know, and let him know how much I loved him. And that I wanted him to have everything. And it was just a short time later that the doctors came in and they said the same fluid that's killing you is now killing him, because the fluid is overtaking where he is trying to survive. So we need to take him or he's not going to have any chance at living. And they just kept saying he's sick, you know, he's sick. His lungs aren't ready for him. He's big, he's really big. He was born at 7.5 months, and he was 7 pounds, 15 ounces. Like, he was a big kid for how young he was. And so they cleaned him off, and we heard this little cry happen finally, and they brought him up long enough for me to kiss his forehead. And then they handed him over to my mom, and they took him into the newborn intensive care unit. So I named him Zachary. Raymond is his middle name, and it's a family name. And he was both like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, but the saddest thing at the same time, because he had feeding tubes. He had IVs keeping him going, and he was on a breathing machine that was breathing for him. And I remember looking at him and just feeling nothing but pure joy. I remember finally seeing him and just looking at him and saying, I fought for you. And I really, really need you to fight for me now.
What an inspiring story. So, to sum up the facts in the case of rape, the rapist is a criminal who is deserving of punishment. Everyone agrees on that. The mother is a victim. We also agree on that. These facts, of course, do not make it right to create yet another victim of the crime by murdering the innocent child who is now living in the mother's womb. Rape is one of the ultimate tragedies in life, and if a rape victim discovers that she is pregnant, any decision will be difficult and painful. None are easy or uncomplicated. So the real question is if abortion is the best thing for the mother to do. Whether she aborts the baby or gives birth to the baby will not change what already happened. At this point, isn't it better for the mother to lovingly care for her innocent child and provide it with a good home, or to at least give the baby up for adoption? That baby is wanted by God. Therefore, no matter what, it's wrong for the mother to murder that child or to outsource the murder of her baby to an abortion doctor. If the mom doesn't want to raise her baby, there are thousands of couples ready and waiting to adopt. Choosing adoption will give that baby a happy, loving home and a chance in life. Raising the child or giving it up for adoption both bring something positive out of that horrible crime of rape which the mother has suffered, as opposed to abortion, which only adds further wrongs and difficulties on top of it. And these hard cases, like rape, thankfully, make up an incredibly minuscule percentage of the total abortions, far less than even 1%. These quote-unquote hard cases are used simply to justify the other 99+% of cases. And you can see this for yourself. Just ask someone the next time they bring up this objection. So, if you're saying abortion should be allowed for women who are raped, are you okay for banning it for women who are not raped? Invariably, they will say no. So you can see that they are just bringing up this objection or extreme and unusual case as a way to justify the millions of women per year who are not raped, but who are simply having their babies murdered by choice. This kind of argument is a form of the fallacy known as the appeal to pity. And the idea behind the appeal to pity is to make one feel so bad over a situation that they become incapable of thinking clearly. So justifying all abortions by appealing to a few cases of rape is like justifying robbery in general by appealing to starving people who steal out of desperation. The old saying, hard cases make bad laws, is true. Care must be taken not to establish laws on the basis of a relatively few hard cases. We need to remember that the child of rape is no less an actual human being than any other conceived child. Consider two adults, one conceived in marriage and one conceived by rape. Is one person more human than the other? Does one have less of a right to live than the other? Can we justify aborting the children resulting from rape on the basis that we know in advance they will not grow up to be valuable, contributing members of society? Think of Ethel Waters. When her mother was just 12 years old, she became the victim of rape. Although Ethel's family considered abortion, the option was rejected. Ethel was permitted to live and grew up to become a famous singer with a fulfilled life. She sung to millions of people in the Billy Graham Crusades. And what if the life of this great gospel singer was just snuffed out? In her autobiography, His Eye is on the Sparrow, Ethel admits that although her life was difficult in childhood, she is of course grateful that she was not aborted. Wouldn't you be? How does killing the child help the raped woman? Abortion may only bring additional physical, spiritual, and psychological consequences for the woman who has already suffered enough. So with that said, let's move on to the second most common objection that I hear. What about if the woman's life is at risk? There is no medical condition that will threaten the life of the mother unless her baby is aborted. Period. In rare cases of complications, doctor can bring the baby out by a C-section. The only possible case which can threaten a mother's life is called an ectopic pregnancy. Ectopic just means a different location. It's defined as the condition in which an egg is fertilized, but instead of moving into the uterus where it's supposed to grow and mature, it implants somewhere else. Removing an ectopic pregnancy is necessary to save the mother, and if the pregnancy continues, the baby will also die. In most cases, the baby has passed away already, but the placenta is still growing. So in ectopic pregnancies, the mother does not want to terminate the pregnancy, and every effort is made to save the baby. This is why even, for example, both Planned Parenthood and the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology do not classify removing an ectopic pregnancy as an abortion. In the words of Dr. C. Everett Koop, the former Surgeon General of the United States, and I quote, "Protection of the life of the mother as an excuse for an abortion is a smokescreen. In my 36 years of pediatric surgery, I have never known one instance where the child had to be aborted to save the mother's life. If toward the end of the pregnancy complications arise that threaten the mother's health, the doctor will either induce labor or perform a cesarean section. His intention is to save the life of both the mother and the baby. The baby's life is never willfully destroyed because the mother's life is in danger." End quote. Finally, it should be noted that even if abortions are banned, there have never been laws that hindered the treatment of ectopic pregnancy or any other conceivable medical conditions. So now, let's answer the question of, does the possibility of deformity or abnormality justify an abortion? Many people feel that abortions are okay in cases of, for example, physical or mental disabilities which can be detected during pregnancy, such as Down syndrome, for example. Well, who among us is qualified to ultimately judge the value of a person's life? Do we have the right to end a person's life, the life of our own children, because they might have some abnormality? If the existence of life is valuable, then even abnormal life is valuable and better than no life at all, as people with disabilities and their parents will surely agree. Endless numbers of people with endless numbers of abnormalities live a wonderful and fulfilled life. If we abort the abnormal in the womb, on what logical basis can we not kill the abnormal in their childhood or even their adult stage? Genetic screening or the testing of fetuses for physical defects while still in the womb with a goal towards killing them if they're not perfect is more reminiscent of Nazi eugenics than compassion. Finally, genetic screening is far from 100% accurate, as you will see in the next episode of this series. The bottom line is, the chance that a developing baby might have some kind of an abnormality or deformity does not give us the right to murder that baby. So finally, let's now address a barrage of viewer questions submitted by Anolis A. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Anolis asked a number of questions, so we're going to address them one by one, and they reflect a lot of the questions that we got. Number one, he says, childbirth has a maternal mortality rate 14 times higher than abortion. Okay, well, I guess Anolis wanted to start us out with a softball because, of course, the risks involved in childbirth do not justify murdering innocent babies. I'd love to also ask Anolis, do you think it would have been better for your mother to abort your birth because giving birth to you was too dangerous? Or if you got married and your wife became pregnant, what if she said, let's abort the baby because having it is just too risky? Secondly, Anolis claims that 50% of all teen girls who become pregnant end up dropping out of school. Well, again, this has nothing to do with abortion. Of course, it would be better to be a high school dropout than to murder your own baby. Number three, Anolis says, single mothers and their children are 20 to 40% more likely to live in poverty. Anolis goes on to add that poverty is associated with reduced life expectancy, lower academic performance, drug and alcohol abuse, and criminality. Well, Anolis, you know what else is associated with reduced life expectancy? Murder! So, I can't believe I even have to say it, but facing financial hardship is not a justification to kill your own baby. Number four, Anolis goes on to talk about tax burdens, if you can believe it. He says abortion costs around $2,000, while 18 years of subsidized child rearing costs around $200,000. Increased crime, he says, can lower property values, deter economic growth, strain the prison system, and lower the quality of life for everyone within the community. Wow. Well, let me tell you guys something, not just in the Bible, but literally in the Ten Commandments, God orders us not to murder. God does not say, "Thou shalt not murder," unless you're short of money. Then it's okay to murder your baby. To me, this question or objection just goes to show how blinded our society has become by money, that people would literally advocate murdering a baby to save a few bucks. Next, he says, to me personally, if you truly believed in a person's need of your body should trump your right to refuse them service, then you'd be donating every tissue you could spare in order to save as many unique and independent, he puts in quotes, human lives as possible. Okay, well, it can be nice to say, for example, donate tissue, as in this objection. The difference is that no one is under any moral obligation to do so. To make an analogy, that's like saying that in order to be against armed robbery, you have to donate all your money to the poor. No, I don't. Donating money is nice to do, but me giving all my money to charity is not what determines if armed robbery is wrong. In just the same way, the answer to this objection is no, I don't need to donate all my tissue to make the killing of innocent babies wrong. Finally, Enola says, choice and bodily autonomy is not harming to women. I assure you, they know what is better for them and their future than you do, he says. So once again, this is not about this bodily autonomy key phrase. How do I know? Well, no one objects if a woman gets a nose job, Botox implants, breast implants, or does anything else to her own body. Abortion is different because there are two bodies and two people involved, the mother and the baby. The mother can make a choice about if she wants to be sexually active and risk getting pregnant, but once pregnant, there are two people and two bodies involved, and it's never okay and never the right of any mother to kill her own baby. All of these questions that we've seen today basically follow the same formula. They all say, having kids is difficult because of blank. Therefore, it's okay to kill the baby while it's still in the womb. The basic premise of all these objections is that, well, having the baby is a huge imposition, inconvenience, challenge, expense, etc. So therefore, killing it is justified. Is it the unborn child's fault that the parents don't want him or her? If the baby is inconvenient, unexpected, or burdensome, is it really better to hire a doctor to kill that baby? Are any of these problems and challenges the fault of that innocent child? For whom is the abortion better? Is it better for the mother, who may suffer physical, spiritual, and emotional consequences from the abortion and later decide she wanted the child? Is it better for the child to be literally sliced to death, poisoned, burned, or sucked out of the womb? Would such ridiculous reasoning be allowed in analogous situations? Like, for example, if a husband says having a wife is too difficult and expensive, and he wants out, does he have the right to kill her? No expense, imposition, or unexpectedness supersedes God's law that thou shalt not murder. So just remember, abortion and murder are never the right option. If the mother doesn't want to keep her baby, there are so many couples waiting to adopt. In other cases, that pregnancy, which the parent or parents initially perceived as an imposition, given time, grows into a child who is greatly cherished, wanted, and loved. So in conclusion, I want to say a special prayer because I know we talked about a lot of hard subjects in this episode, and I feel in my heart that some of you who are watching have become what we as Christians would call being convicted of sin. Now, it doesn't matter what sins you've committed in your past. And trust me, if you're saved, you're going to start to remember more and more of them. But regardless, Jesus died for the sins of all mankind. And that includes me, and it includes you. God himself, taking on human flesh, has given all mankind salvation and true spiritual freedom. We each have a choice. We can live in darkness, allowing evil to enter our lives and unwillingly support the work of Satan and his fallen angels. Or we can let Jesus into our hearts and be spiritually saved forever. That's all you have to do. It's just that simple, and I'm not making this up. Jesus himself said, and I quote, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and dine with him, and he with me." There are no prerequisites, rituals, or fees for accepting the free gift of salvation. All you need to do is honestly invite Jesus to come into your heart, and you can do that anytime you want, including right now. Jesus already paid the bail. All you have to do is accept it. So remember these truths. God loves you, God cares about you, and God wants nothing more than to know you personally and to save you. Sin separates people from one another, and sin separates people from God. Jesus died for your sins and rose again. You can receive Jesus and know God's love right now at this very moment. There is a hope that is steadfast and sure. There is a Father who loves you. All you have to do is just say, "Lord, please come into my life and show me the way. Let hope be born in my soul. Let me sing a new song. Let me feel the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. Come into my heart today as the Lord of my life." And I guarantee you, as sure as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, that if you send out that invitation, then God himself will invade your life, and the goodness and the mercy and the provision of God will become a reality for you. So with that said, I pray for you all, and I hope that the truth will indeed set you free. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Truthology, and thanks for your lovely feedback, your likes, your comments. I appreciate them all so much, and I'll see you guys next time on Truthology.